Hey folks, another NixOS video. This one is number 47. And in this one, I'm going to talk about a few gotchas when it comes to packaging software under Nix. This script will be available in a link in the video description. If you're not a linear learner, you can just go see it there. Although I will be doing some demos in here so you might want to watch anyway. But when you package software for Nix, there are a few gotchas, mainly having to do with the concept of fetchers that you really have to be aware of to just preserve your sanity. This is some hard-won information here. So the main one that you need to know is that when you make a derivation, there's almost always a SHA 256 and or hash argument to a fetcher. And a fetcher is something that just grabs some code out from the internet or wherever. And in order to provide repeatable builds, Nix requires that you specify the hash of the content of the stuff that it downloads. And this is an example here. This bad boy right there. And typically, what you'll do when you start out is you'll start with an empty hash, and it'll download, and then it'll populate for you what, it'll tell you when you build the thing that you got the wrong hash, and all is well with the world. So in this case, we're going to take a look at this Hello World demo here, and it is basically just GNU Hello World. And if you'll notice, the most important things here are that there's exactly one branch, main, and there's exactly one tag in here, version 2.12. Inside of our derivation, I'm making this derivation called hello.nix. Well, this Nix expression called hello.nix. And what I want to be able to do with this expression is run nix-build against it. Let's do that now. Let's go ahead and run it. Run nix-build against my hello.nix file, which is in hello.nix. Exactly the same as what's in here and what's over here. And so I will search through my history to find nix-build. There we go. So it's going to import Nix packages, call the package hello.nix, which should produce our derivation that is defined there. Okay, so it downloaded the source from GitHub, and it noticed that we didn't have a hash, so we have to provide it one. And once we do this, Bob is our uncle. It should build properly. There we go. Compiling. This is a C project, just GNU Hello World C. Okay, and now we should have a result inside of here, and if we cd the result, bin, we should be able to do hello world. That's all it really does. So let's say that we get a little, we think that we got a little ahead of ourselves. We don't want 212 of that. We want 211 of that. But when you're in the heat of the moment, you might not understand that we're fetching from a repository that has no 211 tag. So let's say we changed the version here to 211. And we figure that since we changed our Nix file, since we changed our Nix file, that it should re-download the simple Hello World demo, and it should, since, the idea here is that it would compare the SHA against what it re-downloaded and tell us the SHA is wrong. That's not what happens here. I want you to pay close attention here to what happens when we change the version. Note that there is no 211 tag inside of this thing, but we're going to call exactly what we did before. And it's quote unquote downloading 211. There is no 211. It's re-downloading 2.12. And it's going to produce a new derivation inside our store that will be called hello-211, which is what we told it to call it here. There it is. But it is 2.12. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? Well, the answer is that this hash is a cache key, and unless you if you try to use a fetcher, and anywhere in your Nix store is a fetch version of something whose hash resolves to this, it will go ahead and it will use that thing in your Nix store. It will not try to re-download it, which to the folks who produce Nix is totally sensible, because of course, well, that's the SHA. That is the SHA. It can't be anything else. There's no way that you can get a hash collision on this thing. It's SHA-256. But for development, you forgot to change it. So, to fix this, to move on from this, or at least to diagnose it, when you change anything about the definition of a fetcher, you actually have to clear out the SHA and rerun it. And with any luck, we'll do it again. It can't find it. Of course it can't find it, because there is none. All right. So this really amps up the distrust of Nix when you're developing a package, because, or it can, in my case it did, amped up my distrust of Nix, because things appeared to work, although I was changing versions of things in various, fetchers. It kept giving me the same errors, and I just did not understand what was happening. Note that this is not a problem just with fetch from GitHub. It happens with fetch Git and fetch URL and whatever kind of fetcher you're using. If the SHA doesn't change, then it will have this behavior. There are a few issues about this in both the discourse, Nix discourse. What you'd like to be able to do is something like nix-build -- this -- refresh or something like that. That does not exist. Right? There are a bunch of issues in the discourse and within the doesn't validate hash for the way Nix works is that if the SHA matches, it's not going to try to re-download, and that's really important. It's really, really important that it doesn't re-download again, because if it re-downloads again, it's going to have to rebuild again. So there's really no way in the current design of Nix to tell it, hey, only refresh, only discount the hashes in the file that I'm feeding to nix-build. It's just not in the design to do that. So if you told it to refresh or ignore the hashes and re-download everything, it would re-download everything. It would it would bootstrap GCC and rebuild the kernel and et cetera, et cetera. And there's just no way there's no good way right now for developers to have it easy. You have to really pay attention, and that is the bottom line. You have to be very careful about hashes. So if you're having weirdness happen, you have to either replace all your hashes with a empty string, or you can do something like it depends on the fetcher whether the empty string works. If that doesn't work, you can do lib dot fake SHA-256, something like that. Either one will work, but all the packages that you fetch, you should do this if you're seeing total weirdness and you don't know what's happening. There's another source of weirdness that happens. That I can't reproduce, so there's not going to be a demo of this. But before Nix will put things in a store in some sort of source in the store, it will look inside of cache and Nix like that, and inside of here there will be something like it's usually called like git v3 or something like that. Like it'll be the directory name git v3, or it might just be called git inside of here. And the fetchers will put the stuff that they download inside of here before it goes into the store. They'll be put in here temporarily. And I think at some points, if you stop the build before it's fully downloaded, maybe that's one issue. It's hard to tell, but you can see some weirdness, like fetch submodules doesn't work, or maybe like your thing doesn't compile or whatever. And you can just delete this directory. It's just total cache. So under .cache, just delete it. It's gone. So there are a number of issues in here about that, which yep. Parse error at line blah 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 blah. Yep. So anyway, this is PSA. Hope this helps somebody. Thanks.